Hello, I'm Maurice Wilkins. I'm the Engineering Director of InstMC, and I'm also a trustee. I'm Executive Advisor with Yokogawa Marketing Headquarters based in Tokyo. I'm going to talk to you today about digital transformation and manufacturing operations. As I said, I'm Executive Advisor for the Marketing HQ of Yokogawa, Engineering Director and Trustee, and Chair of Digital Transformations and Standards Special Interest Groups. I'm also chair of GL65 for British Standards, which is the committee that mirrors all of the IEC control and instrumentation standards in Europe. I'm a fellow of InstMC, IChemE, and ISA, and I'm also chair of the both the ISA and IEC HMI standards. I became a member of the Control Magazine Process Automation Hall of Fame in 2011. So I'm going to talk today about digital transformation, look at some of the definitions, the challenges, and the value it brings, look at the technologies around digital transformation, a little bit of background on InstMC itself and the Digital Transformation Special Interest Group, and then why we formed it, and then some of the themes we've been working on over the past couple of years, including successful adoption of digital transformation, and then the impact on assets, people, the process, and then some of the next steps that the group's going to go through. So looking at some of the definitions, we've all heard them, Industry 4, Industrial Internet, Industrial Internet of Things, Internet of Things. And typically in Europe, we talk about Industry 4, which really came out of Germany and was driven strongly by some of the bigger German corporations like Siemens. In the US, they tend to call it the Industrial Internet. There is a consortium over there called the Industrial Internet Consortium. And in Europe, typically IEC and the standards organizations talk about smart manufacturing. They do have things like IoT and the Industrial Internet of Things as subsets of that. And then we've got things like the Internet of Everything, digital factory, connected enterprises, and these are all the kind of words and the buzzwords that go around with digital transformation. I guess over the past few years, we've seen an explosion in the number of connected devices, and it's hard to believe that less than 15 years ago, the iPhone didn't exist. And these days, pretty well most people have got some kind of a smartphone, smart tablet, that kind of thing. And I'm sure that with the pandemic we've been through over the last couple of years, that this number of 50 billion is probably even more now. Everything that we think about is connected these days. Maybe some things that shouldn't even be connected, but they tend to. But what is digital transformation? You can look at it in three ways, really. Digitization, we've been doing for many years now. It's really converting information into a digital format. So typically, we used to take analog signals and make them into digital format to put them into control systems. Digitalization is then taking it to the next step, integrating the business workflow to use this digital information. And but it doesn't really change things. It's digitalizing what you've already digitized. Digital transformation, however, is changing the way you do things, changing your enterprise operations, changing the business, and it impacts everything from the culture of the organization, the skills needed, interactions between the suppliers and the customers. The whole supply chain gets impacted by a digital transformation. And what are some of the challenges? Things like suboptimal business processes we just talked about. You know, the processes themselves aren't available to be transformed. The information is not readily available. Some of it may not even be digitized. It may be on pieces of paper. You may have to put it into a system to be used. A lot of management don't see a clear return on investment. If it's not done by management, then if it's not driven by management, then it sometimes doesn't happen. I've already said existing systems are poorly integrated and deliver limited value. The most value from a digital transformation is integrating all of the systems so that they all speak to each other and they can all react to things happening within the system itself. Another big driver is lack of cross-functional team innovation and change management. So that has to be driven from the top. So having the right skills, the right integrated teams, people working with each other who maybe never have worked together before, but bringing those things together. And finally, the lack of a digital vision and strategy. If it's not driven from someone above with a vision, and many companies these days have put in place chief innovation officers and that kind of things to drive these changes into digital transformation and to coordinate them and they cut across different organizational barriers to get this done. And then basically at the moment, and this will change, this came from a Frost and Sullivan study, but this will change, and I'm sure the pandemic will change things anyway. But you've got the non-digitizers, which is probably up to half of the people, half of the population we look at. Just for them to make the change is a major constraint. The cost of modernization, that their systems are antiquated. They want to do things, but they're constrained. But they're still trying to do things with cloud-based solutions, and that may be things like historians, maybe data analysis, that kind of stuff. And then the selective digitizers, they want to do stuff again, but they have to be selective based on costs. They have standardized IT and OT chains solutions, but the value chain siloed and fragmented, as I said earlier. So managing change is slow, and the motivation then becomes lukewarm. And then you have the enterprise digitizers. They look at things strategically. They want to partner. And one of the other things that we found with this is typically the more successful companies are those that partner with the smaller, more dynamic companies who can help them to do what they need to get done, rather than them trying to develop solutions themselves. There's a challenge of the huge amount of data, but they want to be able to improve the ability to make predictions from that data. They have a standardized IT infrastructure and prefer supplier agreements. And in that way, then they're working together. It's a joint effort rather than trying to do things independently and differently. But one of the driving forces is obviously you want to connect the assets. Every time we're trying to reduce costs, improve availability, uptime, more and more monitoring cybersecurity. And again, I can keep coming back to it, but the pandemic has seen a massive rise in cybersecurity incidents, both in industry and privately to people. Reducing risk, increasing safety, and then the ability to comply with environmental and regulatory restrictions is helped by this. Some of the other emerging challenges and opportunities. One of the opportunities is the ability to see the supply chain from supply to delivery. We're being driven more and more now by sustainability and the circular economy, and that will be driven more and more as we go forward. A change in business environment, and again, that's been no more apparent than during the pandemic, where people have seen a massive move to remote operations and remote deliveries. And I live in the countryside, and before the pandemic, you were lucky if you saw a delivery van once a week. Now we see about 15 a day or something like that. So massive changes in that way. And the speed as well. It's amazing that if you go to Amazon now and order something, typically you can get it the next day, even if you live in a country like I do. Profitable authorization, so you want to be able to, as usual, run things much more profitably. A big thing that's coming is the changing workforce, and we've been hearing about that for probably the last 15 years or more, but now it's really happening. People are retiring in bigger numbers now. But how do you train the new workforce? And will it be the same workforce? Do they need new skills? Do you have to give them those skills? Do you even have the skills to give them? Are you able to do that? And what skills do you require? And the other thing going on in the background that many of us will be aware of is the Open Process Automation Forum, the move towards opening up of the standards for the very control systems that we've been using for the last 40 years or so, 40 or 50 years. So what's the value? You know, do you want to cause disruption or do you want to be disrupted? And one of those things will happen. The status quo is not going to happen anymore. Some things are changing, things will change. So some of the things you may be looking to do is generate further revenue, just automating more operations. And it's interesting. I was talking to one of our customers just last week, just in this day and age, how there is still an enormous amount of process which is not automated. A lot of operations still done manually, so there's still a lot of scope for things to be done. Creating new business models, changing the culture and organization mindset, new innovative business processes, but going towards smart manufacturing, supply chain and optimization and improved decision-making process. So a lot of those things become more and more available as we move towards having a more digital operation. So the drivers and enablers of digital transformation are a lot of things that we've seen in many cases. And when I first started, my world was limited to this piece here and instrumentation. And gradually things have got more and more advanced with the advent of better computing power, better processing and that kind of things. And to be honest, I think in the last few years, and I've been in the industry now since the late 70s when DCSs first came out. Probably now the younger engineers have got as much opportunity to do some exciting things as we had back then in the late 70s. So there's all these kinds of things are impacting us day to day: mobile automation, robots and drones, all of these things, AR, VR, wearables, 5G is coming as well. So a lot of these things are going to impact and give us an opportunity to do things differently than how we've done them for the past several years. And as I just said, a lot of the things I'm reading now from people like McKinsey, Frost & Sullivan, Gartner, all of these people are saying that the impact of COVID has accelerated DT by up to 10 years at least. And just a massive, for those of us who remember, or all of us remember last March when things started to close down, it was amazing how many people were able to start working from home, office-based jobs that moved so that you were working from home. We became used to using Zoom for teleconferences or you know, the online mechanism du jour of Zoom, Teams, WebEx, all GoToMeeting, all of those different things that we all became familiar with. And for those of us who weren't used to seeing masses of people's pictures on the screen, typically over the past several years when I've been on meetings, it's all been without video, and now we're more used to that. So it's become the norm, and it's going to change the face of office life in the future. And I read the other day, Sadiq Khan was saying that it's going to change the face of London. That a lot of the bigger corporations, when this is all finished, will probably move to smaller locations, either within London or outside of London. And we see that. Where I live in Somerset, and we've seen the price of houses go up quite phenomenally in the last year as people have moved out to the countryside, into bigger houses and to work from home. We saw that data analytics and artificial intelligence have helped in the discovery of vaccines. A lot of these sequencing and things like that were much faster done because of data analytics and AI. Remote operations we've been talking about for quite a few years now, but now it's moved further on in that people are now talking about certain parts of businesses in certain industries becoming autonomous. So the ability to not only have remote operations, but getting processes to think for themselves and make changes as needed. And again, talking to the customer I spoke to last week, he was saying that would we go that far? How far would we go in terms of letting the process run and think for itself? that will probably come out more in the next few years. And as we're seeing day to day now, the green movement will gain momentum. And I certainly hope so. You know, we're all seeing how things got better for a while when there was no traffic around, but I see it going back to normal again now, unfortunately. So for those of you who are on the call who are not members of the Institute of Measurement Control, just a little bit of background about IMC. It was founded in 1944 and incorporated by Royal Charter in 75. And obviously we're devoted towards measurement, automation and control and related fields within that. So we'll see in a couple of minutes some of the other special interest groups that are around. But the idea, we promote high standards of competence, keep our members informed on their career progresses and so on. We provide a bridge between academic research and industrial practice, encourage apprenticeships into engineering and science, engage with the wider public, and work with government groups on policy and influence and so on. And part of that is we have at the moment several special interest groups, of which this is one of them, the digital transformation. We also have cybersecurity, functional safety, explosive atmospheres, measurement in general, but flow measurement specifically as well. And we have a standards special interest group as well. And I'm chairman of the digital transformation and standards groups. So why did we decide at InstMC to get into digital transformation? There was a gap in InstMC's portfolio. We didn't have anything around digital transformation. And it's interesting, we started this about 3 years ago and I've seen a lot of other organizations starting to do the same thing, and I won't name them, but there's a lot of other organizations out there now, and we get contacted by them and asked how we started, why we started. But if you think about it, sensors and actuators are the eyes, ears, and hands of digital transformation. If you can't sense it, you can't do anything about it. Although some of these autonomous systems I read about are talking about being able to predict where the sensor's not there. We'll wait and see if that happens or not. So automation and data analysis of the brain. So you sense things through the eyes and ears. The automation data analysis might do something with it, and then you send it back out to the actuators controllers to get things done. The other thing as well is some recent prizes and awards have gone to some pioneers in digital transformation. So Paul Newman, Technology for Driverless Vehicles, Daniel George, the Square Kilometre Array. The SIG formed in late 2018, and so that's just over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and now it's 170 members. Although I will say that, as with most standards groups I'm involved with, probably only 20% of those are actually doing anything. And certainly welcome if more of them would do something so we could get things done quicker. The goals of the group. We're there to service the needs of the members, seeking information and support about the application of digital transformation and smart manufacturing to their own sector. So again, we have meetings about 4 times a year, and everyone is welcome to attend, and we discuss a lot of things around the areas. At the moment, though, as you'll see in a minute, we're focusing on what we're calling our themes. We're there to provide general information to a wider audience as well about the economic and social potential of DT. But the first major deliverable is that we're putting together a guideline or a set of guidelines based on certain themes of digital transformation that we aim to publish hopefully sometime this year. And the themes we decided to work on are the assets, people, and if you come back to what I've been talking about in the previous slides, it really makes sense that these are the things we would look at. So things like asset performance, how do we increase uptime, decrease downtime, the processes themselves, and this is the actual physical processes, like where do we put actuators and sensors, how do we handle big data, the people I've talked about earlier, will need different kinds of people. So how do we manage their competence and that kind of thing? How do we assess the skills they have and the skills we need? And then successful adoption, really driving it all, is why are you doing this? And what does good look like when you've done it? So looking at that in in more detail. So successful adoption, what do we want this to look like when we finish? What are we trying to achieve? Where are you starting from? Do you already have things in place to help with this? Do you have the mindset? Does your management support this? Do you have the finances? What's your capacity and appetite for change? Because to do this right may mean quite a substantial change to the way you do business. And then how would you go about it? Do you start small and build up? Do you go for the whole thing? And I've come across both. In my experience in the last few years working in this area, I've come across companies that have done both with varying degrees of success. There is a tool out there, and there's a web link down there to it, dr-tool.org, for digital readiness. So to see, really looking at the questions I've just asked, to let you know where you are, what are your skills like, what are your operations like now, where are you starting, and what's your capacity for change, and then you'll get a score from at the bottom there, digital outsider, to at the top there, digital excellence and that kind of thing, digital expert. So you can use the tool to see where you are. And I've been told there's a new version of it coming out early this year, so you can look out for that when it comes. And of course, there are different approaches for different scenarios. If you're starting with a brownfield operation, you may be restricted in what you're able to achieve, just in digitalizing what you have. If you have a greenfield, a lot more is possible, and we're hearing about already with some greenfield operations, the capability for digital transformation, digitalization is built in at the start. So you do have more of a blank canvas to do things then. Looking at the assets theme, the definition, an asset is not just a thing. It's anything that has value to the organization. So this theme is going to look at the need for performance of assets, the application of analytical approaches towards managing the assets over different phases of its life cycle. And as I said in about the second or third slide, the ability to interconnect them is more important to enhance innovation. So we're not looking at trying to do things in the old way. We're trying to look to do new things in a new way. So as I said earlier, it's from a life cycle perspective. So it's using the ISO life cycle diagram, and I'll come to that in a second. And some of the assets that the group is looking at are things like edge devices, gateways, data ingestion, aggregation, analytics, visualization. And on top of all of that, the impact of cybersecurity and the ability to build a system. One of the things that the Open Automation Forum has as a tenet of its of the new systems is that cybersecurity will be built in. So I think that's one of the things that is going to play a big part in this. And the asset management group are using ISO 55000 to manage the way they're putting the theme together. And this is the life cycle for it. So you've got the life cycle, looking at risks, looking at the organization again, and the people and the enablers, knowledge enablers, and so on. And what's the strategic plan? What are we trying to do with this? The people theme is quite important as well, because typically, although I said earlier that integration can pose one of the biggest challenges, the organization themselves, if the organization is not set up for the change, it can cause a massive impact on the success of the project. So without a strategy, What about employee pushback, culture of resistance? Why should I change what I'm doing? What's it going to? How's my job going to change? Am I going to keep my job? So, you know, that's the kind of questions you'll be asked. And the lack of expertise to lead the digitization initiatives. So not only do you need good skills, you need good management with the ability to lead the success. And one of the things I said is, one of the things I read earlier in this was the ability to fail early, learn from it and move on. And that's one of the key themes of something like this. Don't let things keep going. Just learn from your mistakes, but learn quickly. So having the right digitally aware and supportive leaders can help for success. Building capabilities for the workforce of the future. So you know what's coming, make sure that you've got skills available, training available, courses available for those people to learn what they need to do. Empower the people to work in new worlds and give them the right tools. And then communicating frequently by not only old methods, but by new methods too. Maybe that might be by an internal wiki or something like that, or some kind of internal social media. And that kind of thing, you know, the ability to get them to use the tools they'll be using further down the line. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink. So you need to identify skills gaps and how to address them. And that could be by retraining, putting people into a different work area, providing the skills that they need, putting training programs together for the future, and just observe the impact on the workforce and their perceptions. You know, what do they think about what's happening? And their perceptions may not be actually the way you want them. They may think things are happening that are not the way you thought they would think them, and you may have to help them through that. So you need corporate views, you need management views, but you need the worker view as well. So bringing those all together is the way to get a successful implementation. Proactive risk management, managing for a positive change. So making sure that whatever change you make, play up the positives. And again, from a management and employee perspective. Defining skills requirements and people development. And again, we've started using another ISO standard, 10015, which looks at people development. It gives guidelines to, and it doesn't actually tell you what to do. It tells you how to do it, if you like. It tells you the kind of things to look out for, to establish what skills you have, where the gaps are in the skills. So first of all, what you obviously need is a where do I want to be? Then you have the skills that you have now. How do I get to where I want to be using these skills, or don't? And where are the gaps? And then how do I fill those gaps so I can get to where I want to be? And then continually doing that process to make sure that in a dynamic digital transformation environment, things will change almost daily. So you have to be on top of things like that. And then the process theme is really looking at, as I said earlier, the sensors, the actuators, the control systems. So looking at things like what, in a services sense, what operational complications might there be in doing this digital transformation? The ability to offer real-time solutions to overcome the complications, and then realizing improvements in the overall plan performance. And then connecting the plan processes. So to make sure they're constantly operating at optimal efficiency and high reliability, and provide preventive solutions. Coming back to what I mentioned earlier with autonomy and that, the idea that it could, the process could self-diagnose and either make suggestions or troubleshoot to do its own repairs. So combine original plan design operation knowledge to your fast solutions. And I suppose this is equivalent to like a digital twin, making the plans running to the design that was meant for it. And if not, why isn't it? And is the operational knowledge better than the design? And do you have to go back and rechange the design to make it current with the plant. So it's like a symbiotic way of doing things. The first thing that the group's working on is what I said, the eyes and ears. So the effective use of instrumentation, using an instrumentation life cycle. So what's the purpose? Specifying it, installing it, operating, verifying and maintaining to make sure that you've got the best instrumentation. Because as I said, if you haven't got the best instrumentation and it's not used in the best way, then you've already caused an issue, because the measurements you might get might not be the ones you need and the ones you want. So the next step for them is to start looking at control and modeling. So looking at process-based control systems and other types of control system, even into building management, information management systems and digital twins. So they'll move on to that next. And the next steps for the SIG itself, we've been developing these. There are actually 5 of them, not 4 of them. We have an introductory one as well, which sets the basis and kind of addresses the first few slides I did in this presentation. You know, what is digital transformation, why do it, and what are the implications? So we call that the introductory theme. But we've done them as different groups, and so obviously there's some overlap and we need to address those. We've completed the first drafts of all but one of the theme documents. So we're coming to a point now where we're ready to do a review process and kind of tidy them up. And then our next plan is to publish the guideline. Our aim is to make this, you know, if we're a digital transformation SIG, then we should really use digital transformation and digital tools. So our idea is to make this a web-based, the guidelines web-based, with ease of access for our members and ease of updating for us, because we see that these things are going to change rapidly. I mean, who'd have thought a year ago we'd be where we are now in terms of life? So the ability to make changes online is very important to us for this SIG. And then we want you know, other materials for members, as I said, online access, and then developing things like articles, white papers, blogs, webinars to promote the work we've done. And it may well be that we'll do webinars in future just on one specific theme or one specific part of a theme. But we certainly like to encourage people to join us, and just, you know, my email was on the first slide. Just send me an email and we can get you into the DT SIG, and the more members we have, the more we can do. So with that, I think that's my last slide. Thank you.
Let
me see if
Can we ask questions or make a statement?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Maurice. My name's Alan Finn. I work in the system in this area in a small systems integrator in Hampshire. We're very much in the square you highlighted of programmable logic controllers and SCADA systems, and our customers that I think listen to this sort of message you've been giving us most closely are the big companies that have site-wide SCADA systems in place. My question is that, or my statement is that we find it very difficult to implement, to get them to fire the starting gun for digital transformation. We think it lies with IIoT, perhaps robotics.
Yeah.
Getting people to, I mean, what we'd love to do is find a way to overlay some simple IoT systems onto existing sensors and actuators in a site-wide DCS. I think that's probably the key area, but I don't know how to do that.
Oh, you have to read our guideline.
No, I don't mean technically how, I mean getting customers to get it.
Yeah, it's you do it the way we've done it in the past is with just by literally using use cases or getting someone who's done it to talk to them. You know, it's simple as it seems, but it's not easy if they don't get it to explain to them. But there is enough information out there to explain to them that it does work. So as I said, what we've done in the past is we've either used analysts or we've tended to just use some use cases to show them that it can be done.
I wonder if the IMC could build together a library of case studies that we can proactively use to get up the eyeballs of our target customers to.
That's a good suggestion. Maybe that's one of the ongoing things that we can come up with out of this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Any other questions? I can't see, actually. I can't see the participants, so I can't see to.
Hello, John Dillon here. I just have a question as regards the special interest group. Do you have inputs to standards, as in BSI standards, ISO standards? Will you have kind of influence on those as part of your? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Okay.
As I said, I don't know if you were on earlier when I said it, but I sit on a lot of smart manufacturing standards committees. And we also have the standards special interest group of InstMC, and all of the special interest groups work closely together. So anything we come across, we can put over into the standards environment. There are quite a number of InstMC members on the standards committees.
And just to be clear, I'm very familiar with the instrumentation type standards. I'm not too familiar with any internet stroke networking standards. If such standards exist, is there many of those standards in place? Or
no, they're just coming out with them now. It's a new field, and if you go onto the web and Google Systems Committees IEC, then you'll come across them there, and we're mirroring them in BSI now. So they call this. There's a Smart Manufacturing Systems Committee. There's a Smart Cities Systems Committee. There's a Smart Energy Systems Committee, and all of those are dealing with the smart standards.
Hi, Maurice. Peter Norman would like to ask a question. He's raising his hand.
Okay.
Hello, Maurice. I just want to check, is it not the problem that, of course, you seem to be mainly talking about industrial Internet of Things in factories, and the UK probably tends to lack many factories for great deal of manufacturing. Just thinking instrumentation, most of our instrumentation comes from Germany, Japan, the US, or whatever. That's where the parent companies are, and their representatives in the UK are only mainly sales offices, maybe calibration. Whereas when I think of our traditional line of engineering work that we've probably mainly been involved with, petrochem plants, that's very much an analog world where, yes, when you replace control valves, you have them fitted with smart positioners. You've got smart instruments. Maybe they're using field bus for a sort of higher level of digitalization. But for those operations, end user clients are trying to enter the digital world by using mobile tablet type devices to take pictures of things and perhaps reference documents digitally on the handheld tablet. But of course, with the great caution that those devices need to be safe in explosive atmospheres. So there's a certain amount of uptake. Another digital method on a plant is that where you haven't got a 3D model, they do this laser scanning where specialists go out with laser equipment and produce a 3D model of the plant, you know, for modification design work on a 3D model. But that has a certain amount of error that creeps in. So I'm just thinking this is quite a challenge for the UK.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind that our existing main plants where they exist, you know, such as Grangemouth up in Scotland and Fawley Refinery down in New Forest area, you know, they are very old plants. Certainly Fawley dates right back to the 1950s, you know.
Yeah, I know, and these companies are trying to do things like this, but they don't. That's why I said on the successful adoption, you know, some of the companies starting brownfield are so far back. It's tough for them to get involved.
Another technology I saw years ago presented by BAE Systems comes out of the military, and that's where if you're working on a large installation, such as inside a jumbo jet or maybe on large ships, you know, the technicians have a wearable in front of eye display screen. Comes out of modern military technology, you know, and they can theoretically call up wiring diagrams to see in front of their eye, you know, via digital link, you know. So while they're working in their large working environment, installing cabling and such, you know, they can theoretically call up wiring diagrams to look at without having to deal with bits of paper or go back to an office to look something up, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely stuff that's being used now. I've come across that in other places in the world.
Yep.
And you know, the ability to robotics to do plant inspections, drones to do plant inspections. You know, in the oil industry, they're using data analytics massively now. So you know, these things are coming.
And certainly I've seen, you know, if you've got an unmanned platform out in the North Sea or something, you know, you can have at the very least, you know, little CCTV cameras set up, you know, to keep visual monitoring on something, you know, as a clue back at base on land, you know, that, oh, we need to go out and look at that. It could do with some maintenance, you know.
Mm.
Thanks.
So,
hi,
John Dillon just put his hand up.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just one more question. Like on the site I'm on, we're considering getting a computerized maintenance management system at some time in the near future. And one of the options that's been proposed is it's a new thing now. It's cloud. Is having it the system managed from the cloud rather than having the server set up on the premises. And it's a good idea, but where the pushback we're getting is from regulatory, in that how do you control it if it's not on your site? You know, it raises questions from a compliance point of view, say for FDA or for you know, FDA or ISO 13485, which is for medical devices. You know, how do you assure, say, or how you done it in the past? How do you assure the management, if you like, or the quality people in particular, that what you're getting in the cloud is just as robust as what you're going to get if you have it on your own site, in your own building, and on your own server? Is this something you've come across before, and do you have any comments or advice on that?
It's something that we're hearing more about. It's not something I've actually come across personally, but you know, I mean, it's the same old thing, and you know, we all bank online now, and we all, you know, do a lot of very personal stuff online, and you know, that's all stored in the cloud as well. So, you know, secure cloud systems are very common these days. It's just how much security do you have to put in to ensure or to make sure that the regulatory people are happy with that. It's more and more things are done in the cloud now on a secure basis.
Hey,
Yeah,
Maurice, this is Robert.
I think
Oh,
it's a data
hang on.
integrity thing. Sorry,
Sorry.
just one comment.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, sorry. My name's Robert Perks. I work in the pharmaceutical industry as well. So, yeah, there's definitely a push from manufacturers to start putting their applications in the cloud. And obviously, you know, depending on the data, they do have to be regulated and validated in the same way as an on-site system would be, which requires careful audit of your cloud provider and, you know, the platform you're putting on. So it's definitely an option, but it requires some additional steps for, you know, auditing your cloud provider, the data integrity, as you say, and the privacy of the data. So there are extra steps there, but pharma companies are definitely moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Maurice, didn't mean to interrupt.
Thanks, Robert. Good. You are one of the steering committee, so well done. Are there any other questions? If there aren't any other questions, then I'd like to thank you all for attending. And if you have any other questions, just send me an email, and I'll do what I can to answer them. But keep looking out for the guidelines. They should be available later this year. We're getting to the point where we're editing them now. So again, thanks for your attention.